a core value, but it's a theory that helps shape who I am and why I came back to Plainfield. In one of my Africana Studies classes at Rutgers, I learned about the talented 10th and W.E.B. Du Bois, and I believe that you go out, you get degrees, and you make yourself better and do all these things, but it's one important piece that people miss out on is that once you go out and you get better, you have to circle back and reinvest.
Hey there, and welcome back to TWT Podcast with yours truly, Dr. Jacinth Joyce, the Teachers Who Thrive podcast. And exactly what we do here, we empower teachers through our courageous and brave conversation. We restore the dignity of our profession by challenging the status quo, and we debunk myths with the help of our guests, past, present, and future teachers. And so, listen, we are celebrating Black History Month. And again, I don't really do these isolated celebratory months because we're all a part of American history. However, we know that American society as well as our school system highlights particular marginalized groups. And so for Black History Month, I'm highlighting one of my dopest brothers, Dr. Tristan Cox, who is amazing in his own right. And so again, before we get started with our conversation, the currency of our podcast is in your like, your share, and your subscribe. And so let's get over to the conversation. Welcome, Dr. Tristan Cox, to the conversation. I just want to say thank you for being dope, for being a brother, right? Being proud of your Blackness and showing up as light in the same district where you actually attended school. You served as a teacher, and now you're supervising, which I just feel like that's just brilliance all over. And so I want you to introduce yourself, but first I want to ask you this question. When you think of the phrase teachers who thrive, what comes to mind?
Okay, so before I answer that question,
Yes.
I would like to give some flowers, some imaginary or virtual flowers.
I receive it.
Yes, thank you. So, Doc, I want to say I respect you as a professional, and I appreciate you as someone who supported me. I remember when you came from middle school to high school, and you were a shining light, and you were brilliant, excuse me, and all these awesome things that you did. Your classroom was beautiful, anchor charts, posters, things of that nature. It's just when you walked in your classroom, I remember feeling like, wow, this is a classroom. This is a place where students are going to learn and where students are going to thrive. So thank you. And thank you for supporting me when you transition to your role as coach. But in answering your question, I think it's important for educators to be human. And what I mean by that is, yes, I understand that we have state testing, we have guidelines, we have policies, we have all these things that we need to do as teachers, as administrators. And that can be a daunting task, keeping up with that. I think it's a balancing act, right? Like you're walking on this tightrope where you're trying to check all of those boxes while still serving your students, right? And you need to be human to serve them. I remember I always, one of the things I talk to my teachers about is, I have a teenage student and he fell asleep in class. And you think, the average teacher might yell at that kid or give him an F on an assignment and all those things. And I remember just telling my staff, like, before you berate this person, find out what's going on. A lot of our students work at night and they're trying to play double. They're being an adult and a student at the same time. They're working at night, trying to pay bills to help their family and things of that nature, and still come to school. So work with that kid, talk to them, be human. That to me is at the core of who I am and what I try to be as a leader, right? And it's challenging because I have my own mandates and I have my own things that I need to ensure that my staff are doing. But my biggest thing is imploring to them that they are human when they interact with their students, and they should be comfortable in their space. Your classroom is like home, and it should feel that way for students when they come in there. One of our colleagues, I don't her name, but Miss McIntosh, your former
she's
colleague,
so dope.
She's amazing. I literally said to her today, nothing related to the podcast. I'm walking by her room, and I just said, thank you, because every time you walk by your room, someone walks by your room, it's so impressive. And you go in there and she had the comfy couches where the kids can do independent reading and all of these things, just so amazing. And I think that's really awesome. Aside from the question, I think teachers, when you enter the classroom, it should be homey, but at the same time, it should be welcoming and it should feel like you're going to a classroom and an educational space.
I love that because I remember McIntosh, we worked together and she has this phrase, your vibes attract your tribe. And yes, when I walk into that space, it is very comfortable. And I love the fact that you said, one, be human first, but two, you should be, as a teacher, be comfortable in your space. Because how can students be comfortable in your space if you're not comfortable in your own space? And what does that mean? Like, not trying to be anybody else, but you shine your light the way you shine your light best. And believe it or not, students don't want no carbon copy of anyone else. They only literally want you. They want your quirky you. They want your personality you. They want your monotone, dry you. Like, they want you, and they'll learn how to navigate you, but if you are comfortable in your skin. And so I agree, that human part, but I do believe that some educators feel that pressure of the mandates. And I want to ask you, how do you, first of all, Dr. Tristan Cox, we talked about the phrase and we jumping into the conversation right away. Who is Dr. Tristan Cox, right? Because you've served in the classroom for 12 years, teaching history for 12 years. Then you've moved into administration. And so you went to school here, you taught here, and you're supervising here as well. So you've seen the transition. And I just love the fact that sometimes a lot of people don't even want to go back to the same community where they grew up. But you're like, no, I want to give back. I want to serve, not even want to serve as a teacher, but now I want to serve. I want to make bigger impact by moving out of the classroom so I can impact greater. And so I just think that's amazing. But beyond the title, right, the human part of who you are, who is Dr. Tristan Cox?
Thank you for asking. I was born and raised in Plainfield, New Jersey. My family has been here for 3 generations.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yes.
Okay.
So we have a long history in this town. One example of that is my grandparents bought a house at the foot of an area of Plainfield that's called Sleepy Hollow, formerly an area where, I mean, you only see a certain type of people that live there. Yeah. We were the first African-American family to own a home in that area.
Seriously?
Yes. And, my grandfather was really hardworking. He worked 2 jobs and had a business on the side to provide for his 7 kids and his wife. So I have a rich history and rich connection to this town. And I'm always writing and reanalyzing and thinking about my core values. And one of my core values is just providing positive experiences for students in Plainfield because I'm from here, and that's important to me because there's a narrative, that I heard for the longest time. And when I was in school that kids from Plainfield can achieve. And, I remember, this one of my friends now, Richard Stewart, he went to Princeton University, one of the best schools, Ivy League schools in this nation. And he went there and he's from Plainfield, public school educated. I went to Rutgers. I went to Seton Hall for my doctorate. I have my bachelor's, I have 2 masters, and I have my doctorate.
Come on, brother.
And it's not to say that degrees are the thing that make you, but it's a part of who you are and professionally and the things that you've worked hard on to ascend to the levels that you've ascended to. So I have a rich history in this town. I grew up here. I've, witnessed some of the negative sides of town just by being here. Right. But that always spoke to me is seeing what went wrong and saying, how can I help? How can I serve this community? When I originally went to college, I wanted to be a business major. And that was just purely for I'm thinking of financial gain. Yeah. But I sat in an African American history class, and that class had such a profound effect on me that I'm like, no, I can't do business. I want to do something that, gives me the opportunity to give back. And I want to say that social studies was my favorite subject. I enjoyed it. Yeah. I knew I didn't want to be a math teacher because I felt like math, it just wasn't my thing. Yeah. I'm like, what's the medium? What can be my medium between who I am, my core values, and connecting with kids? Why not be a social studies teacher? You get to talk about humans, patterns, human interactions, how things that happen in the world, things that happen in your local town, and you get to tie those. And for me, like I said, it wasn't about, the subject. It was about the medium to connect with the kids, to provide a positive impact to people who look like me, who come from the same community as me, who have faced the same experiences. I, gonna step to the side a little bit to come back. I remember being a sophomore in high school and coming to this school one day, and I see this guy who's known as a tough guy. He was crying. And I'm like, why are you crying? And he's like, yeah, Leonard passed away last night. He was murdered. And when he said that, I broke down. I broke down because this was somebody I went to school with since elementary.
Wow.
And, he lived in a certain part of town. He had challenges, family, things like that. Long story short, I lost one of my friends to murder. And like that impacted me so much, one, I was heartbroken. And two, it shaped me to say I'm passionate about helping kids from Plainfield. So whether it's social studies teacher, whether it's social studies supervisor, whether it's custodian, it's how can Tristan fulfill his core value, which is helping students and providing them with positive experiences. For an example, one of the things that I just done, I'm really extremely proud of, is I had a group of 5 kids from Plainfield go down to Nashville, Tennessee, and present at the National Social Studies Conference.
Really?
And for me, again, it wasn't about the presentation. It was about giving 5 young people from Plainfield the opportunity to get on a plane,
to leave
Plainfield, to leave New Jersey, to go to a new state, to live and experience a place like Nashville, Tennessee. So, and I'm actually speaking about it tonight at the board meeting. So it's so many parallels that's my core value. I have the history, I have the connection to the town. I love what I do, and my title is social studies supervisor, but my core value is providing positive experiences for students in Plainfield.
You said so much, and it was so Yo, Dr. Cott, I'm so happy you're here. And first of all, we always ask the guests to debunk a myth, right? And I feel like that whole conversation debunked a lot. Number one, debunking the myth that you're only supposed to teach the content, because you talked about your content is only the medium, it's only the vehicle to get you to serve students that you normally wouldn't touch on a daily basis. So, and I truly believe, what will our system and our education, our experience of our students and teachers be if we put self-esteem, serving our students as primary, and content secondary? All the things we can do. You debunked another myth because you talked about the study of history. It's just not dates. And I strongly disliked history growing up because we were opening this textbook, White Men and Women. It was just dates remembering, and there was not people who looked like me. I didn't see any representation. It was just memorization. It was just regurgitating the information. I'm so much more in love with history and social studies because since the pandemic, there's just been a lot of, I would say, revolution or reform or a different look at history, serving at the state level with NJEA, serving as a PD consultant. I was one of the co-founders, grateful to be one of the co-founders of the Real Movement with one of our comrades, Gabriel Tanglau. Shout out to you, brother. But it talked about racial equity, affirmation, and literacy. And I had to do a lot of unlearning to learn really the hard history. And you talked about the study of people and their environment, like really understanding the people behind the social context of history. It's just not dates. It's just not numbers. It's just not just what we know about regurgitating information. But if you really understand or try to understand, what were they navigating throughout this particular time in history? Who are the people groups' voices that we don't hear about? Okay, I know this is a primary document, but what are the secondary sources and documents that we can pair it up to say what's missing and to elevate those voices that are typically unheard? And so I love the fact that you debunked social studies, just dates about white men, unfortunately, in our history. It's really about understanding what they were navigating, but also in the people, because history impacts everybody. It's like a ripple effect. You also debunked this idea. And when I started an honest moment, I heard so many bad things about Plainfield. I was telling a family friend, I'm super excited, got this job here. And I was like, wait, what? Why would you do that? And before I even stepped into the school, I had this fear of what will I be encountering? Would I even make it? Like, they gonna drag me around the school. And when I came in, no. It's just a love. I love serving my people. I love serving Black and brown babies. And I just feel like I have something to offer. That's not to say if I go somewhere else, because equity is exposure, right? And elevating people who usually don't come in contact with you. But I love how you debunk this myth that, like, reputation, I know it's not only here, but other districts may have a reputation. Other districts may have reputation of they are thriving and, high flying district. But then when you step in, you realize, oh, they're thriving in state assessment, but they are struggling in feeling loved or feeling seen or feeling understood, or there's so much pressure for them to achieve. They're not serving them, but they're almost like machines operating. They need to perform. And I feel like where I've served, whether it was teaching, coaching, or supervising at the state level, I feel like there has been an overarching pattern of teachers and students feeling this need to perform. And I love that you talked about just coming back to Plainfield was you want to pour into them. Whatever it is, you want them to thrive. And that you're not afraid to debunk myths. And I can imagine when they see you standing in front of them as a teacher, or teachers see you standing in front as a supervisor, you've debunked a whole bunch of myths. Because typically, again, people don't usually come back into their community to serve. But I think sometimes people need to see it in a particular body, particular experiential background, and with a voice in order for certain things to hit home. And there was something else you made mention of that really hit home. You're invested in your community. You have lineage. You have roots here. How important would you say it is for a teacher or even a leader to be invested in their community? Because stats show that a lot of teachers do not live, predominantly most of the teachers do not live in the communities in which they teach. They teach and they go back home, and the problems escape them. But how important do you find it, not only with your experience, but maybe overall, now you having multiple perspective and vantage point, student, teacher, now supervisor, how important was it for you to be rooted in your community that you serve? But overall, how important do you feel like it is, just as an educator overall, to be at least living or invested in the community that they teach?
For sure. So I want to step back. One of my core values that I didn't mention, or I guess, I would say, well, it's a core value, but it's a theory that helps shape who I am and why I came back to Plainfield. In one of my Africana Studies classes at Rutgers, I learned about the talented 10th and W.E.B. Du Bois and his theory that, his theory, which differs from Booker T. Washington's, but he believed that you go out, you get degrees, and you make yourself better and do all these things. But it's one important piece that people miss out on is that once you go out and you get better, you have to circle back and reinvest, because it means so much more when I come back, not to my own horn, but when I come back as someone who's navigated the challenges of people growing up in Plainfield to help. It means more. There are people, it's like, students can identify with me. I'm from here. I did it. You can do it too. Yeah. I face some of the same challenges. I've witnessed, violence, drugs, things of that nature. I witnessed murder, unfortunately, of, my close friend. Yeah. And I still was able to do well. But like I said, the most important piece of that is coming back and reinvesting. So like once I heard about that theory, I'm like, I have to go back. Like, I don't want to teach anywhere else. I want to serve the community that I'm from, and it was just so important for me to, like I said, come back to this community, work here. And I started as a teacher and transitioned to supervisor. And now it's even better because my tentacles, they spread further and I can affect more kids. I don't even know the number of kids that I've had an effect on, let alone the kids one I just taught. But as a supervisor, the policies and things that I've put in place that affects people district-wide. So it's been really cool. I'm lucky because not a lot of people get to go to work and say that they enjoy the work that they do. I genuinely enjoy what I do. Some days are difficult, but I enjoy what I do, and I'm happy to be serving students in my community.
So that was one of my reasons of exiting the classroom as well. I think, honestly, when I went further along with grad school, and then I was like, whoa, there's so much more. And then obviously pursuing my doctorate, I think when you have a level of exposure to information, sometimes you remaining where you feel like, I wouldn't say you're limited, but there's bigger impact that you can have. And so I think that is one of my reasons for stepping out of the classroom as well. I miss it so much that I come back to Plainfield and sub. I'm a sub here. And it kind of resonates with me what you said, like going back. I mean, I'm from New York and I try to sub, but they, not as responsive. But I literally can say it brings me so much joy that when I look on that platform and I see my first year teacher mentor absent, I'm taking that job and I'm gonna leave a note right on her desk that why she's out, I don't know. But if she even needed a moment to breathe, that I can step in and serve her the way she served me. A former colleague, I see their name. It's like, I don't know, it makes me so happy now. I'm taking that job. Or for me, even to show up to say, I've served here. I've just had an amazing experience. And the reasons why I am here where I am, my doctorate, getting my second master's was because of Plainfield. And my leaders, when I was not in the room, they mentioned my name in the room. And I feel like they've given so much to me for me to grow, for me to shine, that they're not hating. They're like, I'm so proud of you. There's an opportunity. I remember a teacher, right? And so they honored me with my gifts while I was here. And so no matter how high I move or how degreed I become, Plainfield. Because I remember when I started in 2012, I had all this energy, all these ideas, love for the world, but I knew very little about content knowledge and the art of teaching. But they really valued and groomed me to say, she's got the secret sauce, she's got the connection, she knows her relationship. We'll just kind of bring her in and teach her something else. But I do resonate with that, circling back to where you started and never forgetting about your beginnings, because there's this quote, I forgot who mentioned it now, but the author said, if you're too big to serve, you're too small to lead. Wow. If you're too big to serve, you're too small to lead. And I wonder if we have a lot of leaders who are too big to serve. And I wonder, in your experience of just even assuming leadership, now I'm going to say fairly new, maybe under 2 years, right? Serving, what can you say has really impacted how you lead? I know your roots in Plainfield. I feel like that is paramount, that you're giving back to your community and the nuances, the challenges that we face here. So you're able to lead from a perspective of, I want to elevate. But just stepping into your role beyond, I guess, the politics or the paperwork or the mandates and the demands, what are some challenges that you face? But how do you go back to your core values to guide your decision making and to really know that you're making impact beyond the numbers you can even describe or imagine?
Wow. Well, I'm going to start by telling a quick story.
Yeah.
I was just randomly at TJ's Fish Market a week ago, and I bumped into two former students. They were sisters. Mm-hmm. And one sister, the older sister, she said, Mr. Cox, I don't know if you remember, but I was your student the first year you came to Plainfield High School. And her younger sister, she's like, I was your student right before you left the classroom to transition to administration. And it hit me, it stuck me in the heart, like, because it's so different. Yeah. Your day-to-day as a classroom teacher is interacting with students, helping them, loving them, helping them with their self-esteem, helping all of these things, to transitioning to helping teachers, right? And helping them with their self-esteem and loving them, right? So another one of my core values is support. Mm-hmm. And I think that the purest form of love is support. And when I think about my wife, right? Yeah, marriage has challenges and marriage and all that stuff. But I think about, at the core of the things that I love about her is that she supports me without question.
I love that.
She is unwavering in her support with me. You know, she's like, let's sit at the kitchen table. Let's study. You need to study for your school leadership exam. You need to write those edits on your dissertation. You need to do all these things. Okay. So support is a core value. And when I think about who I am as a leader, yes, I have good days. Yes, I have bad days. And some days maybe I don't live up to it. But my core value in my job is to support my staff. And that doesn't always mean like, getting them textbooks or getting them lesson plans or things like that. Sometimes people just want to be heard. You know, you have a staff meeting. I had a department meeting yesterday, and people had gripes. And I always tell myself, sometimes it's not really the gripe. It's just like my staff wants to feel that I'm listening to them, that I care about what they're saying, and I'm not just responding to quiet them down. So a lot of times I'll just let them talk, and I'll just be there, and I'll just give them my time. And I feel like that's the most valuable thing. And it just goes back to something I said earlier about being human. Like, yeah, I did it as a teacher, but even as an administrator, it comes down to being human, and it comes down to our interactions with other humans.
Come on.
The mandates are going to be there. I'll check those boxes. I'll make sure we hit AAPI. I'll make sure we hit the Holocaust mandate, African American history, and all those things. We're going to do that. We're going to have programming. I'm going to offer professional development. I'll send you some suggested readings and things like that. I'm going to do that. But my job is to be human. And now the transition is spending more time working with adults. And that's okay. They need love too. More love, really. Everyone needs love. But, my job now is working with adults, supporting them, loving them, letting my staff know that I care, in a professional manner, obviously. And just that I'm there for them, and I'm not, just trying to push a mandate or push something that's required.
You said a lot. But first of all, shout out to you, Mrs. Cox, for being a supportive partner. And yeah, that is so dope. First of all, can you just share with the people, just list your core values out here? Because I feel like when you respond, I didn't tell you this, but another one of my core values is, it is giving back to the students that you serve in Plainfield as core value. Support. And support looks a myriad of ways, right? Support can be financially. You mentioned support is time. Time is the most valuable commodity. You cannot get it back, but you spend time. Sometimes that's all people really need. Giving a listening ear. Active listening is support. That's a level of empathy. We don't listen anymore. You said sometimes I'm not even quick to respond because in a role as a leader, sometimes they see you as fix-it, as problem solver, and you knowing how to balance. There's nothing to fix here. I just need them to gripe. Because really I've learned the gripe at the base of the gripe is either a fear of change, what they're griping about, a new standard, a new mandate, something they got to do new, and there's a fear of change, fear of inadequacy. There's something coming down the pike I don't feel ready for. So you get that resistance, right? And so sometimes I listen, I'm like, okay, at the root of this complaint, it's fear. Sometimes it's just maybe even a lack of knowing how to navigate this change. It's still fear. And so I've learned to suspend judgments when a complaint's coming through. I'm trying to listen to what they're not saying. Then I can step in and say, well, now I've heard you gripe and complain. Thank you for sharing your heart with me. Are you ready for a solution? And how can we get there together? I love those core values. You got any more that you want to share with us? Our TWT listeners, I just want to say, listen, the currency of our podcast is in your like, your share, and you subscribe. And always, you were not born to survive. You were not created to survive, but you were born to thrive. Until next time.